the place for politics.
There's scary things about adoption, but men like parenting. I mean, that's even scarier. Dude, how'd you end up getting pregnant anyways? You didn't use condoms?
Yeah, I did. I used them when I got washed in the washing machine.
And now you're pregnant.
Here's our life now.
A scene from MTV's new documentary series, Teen Mom, a follow-up to last spring's 16 and Pregnant. The shows are part of a joint project promoting comprehensive sex education for teens and young adults. This a startling new survey shows sexually active single young adults and teens are having unprotected sex more than ever before in the previous decade, and many don't know anything about contraception, including the proper use of something as basic as a condom or how to avoid sexually transmitted diseases. Joining me today to make rounds, Sarah Brown, National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy, and Sari, sexologist and sex educator who teaches adolescent psychology at Columbia University. Welcome, you guys. And Sarah, let me start with you. The numbers are really quite staggering. Sexual activity among teenagers in 2006, 9th graders almost 33%, 10th grade 44%, 11th grade 55.5%. By the time a kid graduates from high school, almost 66%. If that many kids are sexually active and they don't know the basics of how to use a condom, what in the world are we doing wrong?
Well, and you know, it's not just teens either. I mean, our survey released today includes young adults. Both teens and young adults, especially single young adults, are having a lot of unprotected sex, and they don't know as much as they need to know about protection. And it's due to a lot of things, Dr. Snyderman. It certainly is due to lack of education, lack of services, but there are also a lot of issues in people's own attitude and beliefs and behavior that need attention as well.
Sarah talks about something that's really important, and that is we assume that by the time kids go off to college and young adulthood that they're launched. They know what in the world they're doing, but to not know the basics of how to put on a condom, it almost seems crazy. I mean, you've been very, very frank when you've spoken to people across this country. Where's the glitch? Is it because we're so prudish?
I think that when it comes to single 20-somethings, like the National Campaign study was examining, what we're finding is that many of them think that pregnancy either happens or doesn't happen, and they don't realize that in order to protect themselves from pregnancy, they need to use birth control and use condoms every single time that they have sex. So there's so much of a disconnect. The study also found that there's this lack of knowledge that you're talking about, but also all these misconceptions. One of the greatest misconceptions was that they don't think that they're as at risk for pregnancy as they really are. They don't realize that if they're having sex and not using contraception, that within a year, 85% of 20-somethings will get pregnant.
Sarah, does this go back to the old wives' tales of, oh, you couldn't withdraw, and if you don't ejaculate in somebody, nothing bad's going to happen, and that STDs can't happen if you don't have vaginal sex? I mean, do they hear the message but then not take it with them from year to year?
Well, I think there's a lot of magical thinking going on, and sorry,
the
just
Russian
alluded
roulette
to some
aspect
of
of sex.
It is Russian roulette. We haven't been able to communicate to both teens and young adults that to use birth control properly means you have to use it every time. It's like seatbelts. You don't sort of say, well, I'll use it half of the time. And yet we know for young adults that about half of them are having unprotected sex, or at least they're not using their methods carefully enough, and that isn't going to do the job. We have to have a new social norm that unless a couple is fully planning, both of them, to stick with each other and form a family and do all those things that are required in good parenting, that they must use contraception every single time. And yet we know they don't. And in fact, a lot of the young adults we talked to predicted that they would have unprotected sex in the next few months, even though they say they think pregnancy should be planned and that they know it's important to use birth control, and many of them have. They still actually don't do what they themselves say they want to do. And one of the consequences is that 7 in 10 pregnancies to single young adults are unplanned. That's what the women themselves say.
So, Sari, very quickly, if you would, what do we do then if these numbers are as bad as both you and Sarah have said, and we have this disconnect? What do we do?
We tell our single 20-somethings that they should go to the store, pick up a box of Durex condoms, open the box, read the directions, and learn how to use them.
And practice,
they should go
practice,
to a gynecologist. Yes, go to the gynecologist and learn about birth control pills. And parents, you can still help your 20-somethings by giving them sex education now.
And if I may just add one more thing, there are some wonderful new methods of birth control available now, including a new generation of IUDs, patches, rings, and more things that mean you don't have to do something every day and you don't have to do something in the moment. So if a young person doesn't like their current method, there are others to use, and it's their responsibility to be careful and to be safe until they are actively ready to form a family.
Sarah Brown, Sari Locker, I appreciate your wrapping up the show for us today, and a reminder that if you want to make sure that you're poor and don't get a good education and don't get great jobs, just get pregnant early in life. It's a hell of a have to climb out of. I appreciate it very much. And for you parents out there, it's never too early to sit down and have that conversation. No, you're doing your kids a big favor. Well, that's it today for us here at Dr. Nancy.